The great hall floated in space, a massive structure of glass and metal that orbited a distant star. Inside, representatives from 100 different worlds sat in their assigned seats. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few were just clouds of gas held together by energy fields. They all watched the human standing at the center of the room. Ji-ho adjusted his uniform and tried not to show his nervousness. He had practiced this presentation 1,000 times. Behind him, holographic images showed Earth in all its beauty. Blue oceans, green forests, cities that sparkled with lights. He showed them human art, human music, and human achievements. He talked about the hospitals they built, the schools where they taught their children, and the technology they had developed. For a while, it seemed to be going well. Some of the alien counselors nodded their heads, or made sounds that might have been approval. Ji-ho allowed himself to hope. Maybe humanity would finally be accepted into the Galactic Council. Maybe they would no longer be alone in the universe. Then Counselor Vexthara raised one of her forearms. She was tall and covered in purple scales that caught the light. Her species had been part of the council for thousands of years. When she spoke, her voice echoed through the chamber. "Show us your history," she said. "All of it?" Ji-ho's heart sank. He knew what was coming. He pressed a button, and the beautiful images of Earth disappeared. They were replaced by darker scenes. Wars across every continent. Cities burning. Weapons that could destroy entire planets. He showed them the worst of humanity because he had no choice. The council demanded complete honesty from all applicant species. The chamber grew quiet as the images played. Ji-ho watched the faces of the counselors change. The nodding stopped. Some turned away. Others whispered to their neighbors. One species that looked like floating jellyfish actually changed color from blue to deep red. When the presentation ended, Ji-ho stood in silence. He wanted to explain. He wanted to tell them that humans had learned from their mistakes, that they were better now, that every species probably had a dark past. But before he could speak, Vexthara stood up. "These creatures are too dangerous," she announced. "They fight each other over invisible lines on maps. They create weapons designed only to kill. They destroy their own planet for profit. I move that humanity be denied membership and placed under immediate quarantine." Another counselor, a being made of crystalline structures that chimed when it moved, spoke next. "I second the motion. The human species shows clear signs of uncontrolled aggression. They should not be allowed to spread beyond their own solar system." Ji-ho finally found his voice. "Please, honorable counselors, we have changed. We have peace now. We have learned. For how long?" Vexthara interrupted. 10 years? 20? Your species is young. Your peace is untested. We cannot risk the safety of the entire galaxy on your promises. The vote happened quickly. It was not even close. Out of 100 counselors, 93 voted for the ban. Only 7 voted to give humanity a chance. The number felt like a punch to Ji-ho's stomach. "The decision is made," the head counselor declared. "Humanity is denied membership in the Galactic Council. Furthermore, all human vessels are restricted to the Sol system. No human ship may travel beyond the orbit of your furthest planet. No trade will be permitted. No contact of any kind. This restriction will remain in place for 100 standard cycles. Perhaps then, you will have matured enough to join civilized society." Security guards appeared at Ji-ho's sides. They were not rough, but they made it clear he needed to leave. As they escorted him toward the exit, Ji-ho heard something that made his blood run cold. Laughter. Not loud, not mocking exactly, but definitely there. Several counselors were chuckling to each other. To them, humanity was amusing. A joke. A species that thought it was ready for the stars but was still just children playing with dangerous toys. Ji-ho kept his head up as he walked out. He would not give them the satisfaction of seeing him break down. The journey back to Earth took 3 weeks. Ji-ho spent most of it staring out the window of his ship at the stars. Somewhere out there, civilizations were trading with each other, sharing knowledge, exploring together. And humanity was locked out, trapped in their own system like criminals in a prison. When he finally landed on Earth, a crowd was waiting. They had watched the council proceedings on live broadcast. They knew what had happened, but they wanted to hear it from him directly. Director Mina met him at the landing pad. She was in her 50s, with gray hair and eyes that had seen too much disappointment. Next to her stood General Tai Yang, a military man who rarely showed emotion. Both of them looked tired. "We expected rejection," Mina said quietly as they walked away from the crowds. "But not imprisonment." "They laughed," Ji-ho said. His voice sounded hollow even to his own ears. "After they voted, some of them actually laughed." Tai Yang's jaw tightened. "Then they do not know us as well as they think." They entered a secure building and rode an elevator down several floors. In a conference room deep underground, Earth's leaders were waiting. Presidents, prime ministers, scientists, and military commanders from every nation. They all looked at Ji-ho with the same question in their eyes. He told them everything. The vote, the restrictions, the laughter. When he finished, the room erupted in angry voices. Some wanted to defy the ban. Others wanted to build weapons to defend themselves. A few even suggested attacking the council before they could attack Earth. Director Mina raised her hand, and the room slowly quieted. "We will comply with the ban," she said firmly. "But we will not stop working. We will not stop improving. We will not stop being human." She looked around the room, making eye contact with each leader. "They think we are too dangerous, too violent, too unpredictable. Maybe they are right, but they have also made a mistake. They have given us 100 years to prove them wrong, or to prove them right in ways they cannot imagine." General Tai Yang nodded. "We begin today. Research, development, preparation. When those 100 years are up, we will be ready. For acceptance or for anything else." Ji-ho watched them make plans, assign resources, and organize humanity's response. Despite everything, he felt something unexpected. Pride. The council had tried to shame them, to lock them away like monsters. But humanity would not break. They would bend, adapt, and emerge stronger. As the meeting ended and people began to leave, Ji-ho stood alone by the window. Outside, he could see the stars beginning to appear in the evening sky. Somewhere up there, aliens were laughing at humanity. Let them laugh. One day, they would understand what they had really done. They had not caged a monster. They had challenged a species that never learned how to quit. The real test was just beginning. Curie had always loved digging through old records. As a Vrelian journalist, she believed that truth mattered more than convenience. Her people were known throughout the galaxy for their curiosity and their long memories. She had fuzzy blue skin and large eyes that could see in the dark, perfect for spending long hours in dusty archives. Today, she was researching a documentary about dangerous species. The title was supposed to be something dramatic, like When Evolution Goes Wrong. It was supposed to be about species that the Council had deemed too violent or unstable to join galactic society. Humans were going to be the main example, but something was not making sense. Curie sat in the Council's public archives, scrolling through files on her data tablet. The humans had been banned 50 years ago. That much was clear. The official record showed their violent history, their wars, their weapons. But when she looked for records from the monitoring period, when Council ships had supposedly observed Earth from a distance, she found something strange. There were gaps. Big ones. The monitoring reports were supposed to be routine. Every species under observation got regular check-ins. But the human files had dozens of reports that were sealed. Not deleted, sealed. That meant they still existed, but were classified at a military level. Why would peaceful observation reports need military classification? Kiri made a note and kept digging. She found more oddities. Medical reports from council ships that had been near the Sol system. Damage assessments. Emergency repair logs. Incident investigations. All of them were sealed. All of them had happened during the monitoring period. She called her research partner, Dane. He was an insectoid historian from a species that valued order and patterns above all else. His forearms were perfect for working with multiple data streams at once, and his analytical mind could spot inconsistencies faster than any computer. "I need you to look at something," Kiri said when he answered. "The human files. Something is wrong with them." Dane arrived an hour later, his compound eyes reflecting the light from multiple screens as he examined her findings. His mandibles clicked together, which meant he was thinking hard. "You are correct," he said after a long silence. "These patterns do not match standard observation protocols. There are too many sealed files. Too many incidents that were never explained to the public. Can you unseal them?" Kiri asked. Dane's antennae twitched. "That would be illegal." "I know." He looked at her with several of his eyes, while the others kept scanning the data. "You want to do this anyway." "I think we are supposed to," Kiri said. "Look at the encryption. It is military grade, yes, but it is old. Really old. And some of the passwords are practically defaults. It is like someone wanted these files to be difficult enough to keep casual browsers out, but easy enough for someone determined to get in." Dane considered this. His species were not rule breakers by nature, but they were also deeply committed to truth and accuracy. A historical record with gaps was offensive to his entire way of thinking. "Very well," he said. "But we do this carefully." It took Dane 3 days to crack the first set of files. When he finally opened them, both he and Kiri stared at the screen in confusion. The file was labeled Cargo Freighter Tal Shiva Final Recording. According to the public record, the Tal Shiva had experienced minor engine trouble near Jupiter, but had made it home safely. Nothing dramatic. Nothing worth sealing. But the video file told a different story. The footage was from the Tal Shiva's bridge camera. It showed a Drellian captain and his crew in obvious distress. Warning lights flashed everywhere. Someone was shouting about life support failing. Another crew member reported that their engines were completely dead, and they were drifting into Jupiter's gravity well. Then came a transmission. The universal translator made it clear and understandable. "Tal Shiva, this is the human vessel Bizan Dream. We have received your distress signal. We are changing course to intercept." "Hold on." The Drellian captain looked confused. "Human vessel? But humans are restricted to... We are a mining ship operating in the outer system under pre-ban permits." The human voice interrupted. "We are still allowed to be here. And you need help. We will reach you in 40 minutes. The next part of the video was heavily edited, showing timestamps jumping forward in chunks. But what it showed made Kiri's breath catch in her throat. Humans in spacesuits, working on the outside of the Tal Shiva. The footage showed them cutting through damaged hull plates, rerouting power systems, and manually repairing engine components. The timestamps showed they worked for 18 hours straight. One segment showed a human, identified in the subtitles as Captain Hyan, splitting his ship's oxygen reserves with the Tal Shiva crew. Another showed a human engineer named Sola, literally giving the alien crew her own food rations because their supplies had been contaminated. When the Tal Shiva was finally stable, the Drellian captain tried to offer payment. The video showed Captain Hyan shaking his head. No payment needed. Just glad you are safe. You would do the same for us. The Drellian captain seemed stunned. But we voted to ban your species. Captain Hyan shrugged. That is politics. This is people. Safe travels, Captain. The Byzantine undocked and left. The video ended. Kiri and Dane sat in silence for a long moment. Finally, Kiri found her voice. The official report said the Tal Shiva had minor trouble and made it home safely. No mention of the humans at all. Dane pulled up another file. The Tal Shiva's captain filed a report recommending humanity for immediate council consideration. He praised their courage, skill, and compassion. His report was sealed within 2 days. He was ordered to file a corrected version that made no mention of the human encounter. Who ordered that? Kiri asked. Dane dug deeper into the files. The seal came from the Office of Council Security, but the order originated from several counselors, including Vexthara, the same counselor who had led the vote to ban humanity. Kiri felt something cold settle in her stomach. Find more files. All of them. Over the next week, they uncovered dozens of similar incidents. A passenger liner that broke down near Mars, saved by a human medical ship. The footage showed a Dr. Bora working 30 hours straight to treat alien children suffering from a pathogen. She used her own ship's medical supplies, which left her vessel barely stocked for emergencies. A cargo hauler attacked by pirates near Saturn's rings. Human security contractors, led by Officer Junho, drove off the pirates and escorted the damaged ship to safety. They refused all payment. A research vessel caught in a solar flare. Captain Nari positioned her exploration ship between the research vessel and the radiation, using her own hull as a shield. Her ship was badly damaged. 3 of her crew were injured. But every alien on the research vessel survived. Every single incident had been sealed. Every report recommending humanity had been buried. Every human act of courage or kindness had been erased from the official record. But they also found the other files, the ones that had been shown to the Council during humanity's application. Carefully edited compilations of Earth's worst moments. Wars shown without context. Atrocities shown without any mention of the humans who fought against them. Every positive aspect of humanity had been systematically removed. This was deliberate, Dane said. His voice carried an emotion Kiri had never heard from him before. Anger. Someone manipulated the Council's decision. They made humanity look like monsters when the evidence showed the opposite. Kiri nodded, her mind racing. But why? What would anyone gain from banning humanity? Dane pulled up another set of files. These were financial records. They showed massive contracts awarded to certain Council species after the ban. Defense systems sold to border worlds afraid of the quarantined humans. Military patrols. Monitoring stations. Billions of credits changing hands. Fear is profitable, Dane said quietly. Someone made a fortune by making the galaxy afraid of humans. Kiri stood up. We need to release this. All of it? The galaxy needs to know the truth. Dane grabbed her arm with one of his hands. If we do that, the people who buried this information will come after us. This is not just about correcting a historical record. This is about exposing corruption at the highest levels of the Council. Kiri looked at him steadily. I know. Are you with me? Dane's antennae drooped slightly, which meant he was worried. But he nodded. Truth matters more than safety. Let us do this properly. They spent the next 2 days copying every file they could access. Then their archive access was suddenly revoked. Someone had noticed their digging. Security alerts appeared on their tablets. They had run out of time. They needed to move, and they needed to do it now. The alarms started at midnight. Kiri woke up to flashing red lights in her apartment and a recorded voice saying that Council security was requesting her immediate cooperation. Through her window, she could see 2 patrol ships hovering outside. They were not making any effort to hide. She grabbed her data tablet and threw some clothes into a bag. Her hands were shaking, but her mind was clear. She had backed up all the files to 3 separate storage devices that she wore around her neck. If they caught her, at least they would have to work to find the evidence. Her communicator buzzed. It was Dane. "They are at my lab," he said without greeting. His voice was tight with stress. "I am leaving through the maintenance tunnels. Meet me at Docking Bay 12 in 20 minutes. Docking Bay 12 is a cargo area, Kiri said, confused. Exactly. They will be watching the passenger terminals. Cargo is our only chance. Go now. Kiri did not wait. She climbed out onto her balcony and used the emergency ladder to reach the street level. Around her, the city of Vela Prime continued its normal nighttime routine. People walked past, completely unaware that their government was trying to silence the truth. She kept her head down and walked quickly toward the industrial district. Twice she saw security patrols and had to duck into alleys to avoid them. Her heart was pounding so hard she thought it might break through her chest. Docking Bay 12 was a mess of cargo containers and loading equipment. Dane was waiting near a small freighter that looked like it had seen better days. Its hull was patched in several places, and the engines were making a worrying, rattling sound. "This is our escape ship?" Kiri asked. "It is fueled, and the captain owes me a favor," Dane said. "It will have to do." They climbed aboard just as security vehicles appeared at the entrance to the docking bay. The freighter's captain, a grumpy Helvian with too many arms and not enough patience, immediately started the launch sequence without asking questions. "Strap in," he growled. "This is going to be rough." He was not exaggerating. The freighter blasted out of the docking bay so fast that Kiri's vision went gray for a moment. Behind them, the security ships scrambled to follow. Weapons fire lit up the space around them as the patrol ships tried to disable their engines. Helvian captain cursed in 3 languages and threw the ship into a series of maneuvers. That should not have been possible for a vessel that size. Cargo containers broke loose in the hold and crashed around. Kiri held onto her seat and prayed to any gods that might be listening. They made it out of Rella, Prime's atmosphere, and into open space. The security ships were still following, but they were falling behind. The freighter might have looked like junk, but its engines were clearly modified well beyond legal specifications. "Where are we going?" The captain shouted over the sound of straining engines. "Crossroads Station," Dane replied. "Can you get us there?" The captain made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Crossroads? That is neutral territory. Council security cannot touch you there. Smart, very smart. It will take us 3 days. Hope you brought snacks." The next 3 days were tense. They spent most of the time reviewing the files they had copied, making sure everything was intact. Kiri organized the footage into a presentation that would make sense to the public. Dane wrote detailed explanations of what each file showed and where it had come from. They also found more evidence of the conspiracy. Financial records showing which counselors had invested in defense companies right before the vote to ban humanity. Communication logs that had been imperfectly erased, showing coordination between several council members to ensure the ban would pass. The most damning evidence was a memo from Vexthara to a military contractor. It was dated 1 week before humanity's council hearing. The memo discussed expected increased demand for containment systems and projected profits from human quarantine. She had known what the decision would be before the vote even happened. More than that, she had financially benefited from it. "This is worse than we thought," Kiri said quietly. This was not just about hiding good deeds. This was about creating a threat that did not exist so they could profit from the fear. Dane nodded, his antennae drooping with sadness. How many other species have been treated this way? How many times has the Council manipulated the truth for profit? They had no answers. They only knew that this had to stop. Crossroads Station appeared ahead of them on the third day. It was huge, a massive wheel spinning slowly in space. Crossroads was famous throughout the galaxy as the one place where the Council's laws did not fully apply. It was neutral ground, governed by a coalition of independent worlds. More importantly, it was home to hundreds of independent media organizations that the Council could not censor. The Helvian captain docked at a public berth and immediately left, muttering about never wanting to see them again. Kiri could not blame him. They had probably put him on several watch lists just by being on his ship. Dane had contacted an old friend who worked at one of the largest independent news networks on the station. Her name was Thera, and she was a Quillix investigative reporter known for breaking stories that powerful people wanted buried. She met them at a cafe near the docking ring. Thera was small and covered in crystalline spikes that changed color based on her mood. Right now they were shifting between blue and orange, which meant she was excited and cautious at the same time. "You two look terrible," she said by way of greeting. "What have you gotten yourselves into?" Kiri placed one of the storage devices on the table between them. "The biggest cover-up in Council history. We have proof that humanity was deliberately framed. Their ban was based on manipulated evidence. Councilors profited from it. And we have footage showing humans as heroes, not monsters." Thera's spikes turned bright green, which meant intense interest. She picked up the storage device and examined it. "This is authenticated Council data?" "Every file," Dane confirmed. "We can prove the chain of custody. We can show exactly when and how the files were sealed. And we have the financial records showing who benefited." Thera was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was serious. "If I broadcast this, it will cause chaos. The Council will claim it is fake. Some species will not want to believe it. There could be riots, maybe even wars. Are you absolutely certain this is real?" Kiri met her eyes. "I have never been more certain of anything. The galaxy deserves to know the truth. Humanity deserves to have the truth known." Thera's spikes turned gold, which meant determination. "Then we broadcast it everywhere, all at once. Every network, every planet, every station. We release it so widely that it cannot be suppressed. Give me 6 hours to prepare." Those 6 hours felt like the longest of Kiri's life. She and Dane sat in a small room at the news network headquarters, watching Thera and her team work. They assembled the footage into a coherent narrative. They verified every source. They prepared for every possible accusation of fakery. Finally, Thera came to get them. "We are ready. In 5 minutes, this goes out to every corner of the galaxy. Once it starts, we cannot stop it. Last chance to back out." Kiri looked at Dane. He looked back at her. Neither of them hesitated. "Do it," they said together. Thera smiled and walked to the control room. She sat down at the main console and pulled up the broadcast interface. With one hand, she activated every network connection the station had. With another, she started the presentation. "Citizens of the galaxy," Thera's voice went out across countless worlds. "What you are about to see will change everything you thought you knew about humanity. This is the truth. The whole truth. The truth that powerful people tried to bury. Watch. Decide for yourselves." The footage began to play. Captain Hyan sharing his oxygen. Dr. Bora saving alien children. Officer Jun-Ho fighting pirates. Captain Nari shielding strangers with her own ship. Dozens of incidents, hundreds of lives saved, all of it suppressed and hidden, and then the financial records. The coordination between counselors. The proof of manipulation and profit. Kiri watched the numbers on the screen, showing how many people were viewing the broadcast. Millions became billions. Entire planets were watching. The galaxy was finally seeing the truth. Now they just had to hope it would matter. The first protests started within hours. On Vrella Prime, Kiri's home world, thousands of people gathered outside the Council Embassy building. They carried signs with messages like, "We were lied to and free humanity." Some signs showed images of Captain Hyan or Dr. Bora with the words, "These are not monsters." Similar protests erupted on dozens of other worlds. The Drellians, whose cargo ship had been saved by the Bizon Dream, organized massive demonstrations demanding answers. The parents of the children Dr. Bora had saved appeared on news programs, crying as they talked about the human who had given everything to keep their kids alive. But not everyone was convinced. On the industrial worlds where defense contractors had made billions from the human quarantine, counter-protests formed. People who had jobs building containment systems or monitoring equipment did not want to believe they had been profiting from a lie. It was easier to claim the footage was fake. Kiri watched it all unfold from Crossroads Station. The news networks showed split screens of the chaos happening across the galaxy. One screen showed peaceful protests calling for justice. Another showed angry mobs burning images of humans. A third showed council representatives refusing to comment. "It is working," Dane said quietly. "People are questioning the official story." But Thera, who was monitoring all the feeds, looked worried. Her crystalline spikes were dark purple, which meant fear. "Look at the military channels. Several border worlds are threatening to secede from the Council if the human ban is lifted. They say they will not be in the same organization as humanity." Kiri felt her stomach drop. "They are talking about splitting the Council?" "More than talking," Thera replied. 3 worlds have already declared they will leave. 6 more are holding emergency votes. This could tear apart the entire galactic community. On one screen, a Zervian senator was giving an impassioned speech. "The humans are manipulating you. Cannot you see? These so-called rescues were staged. They knew they were being monitored. They performed these acts to infiltrate the Council, to make us lower our guard. And now, thanks to these foolish journalists, they might succeed." Other voices pushed back. A Quillic scientist appeared on another network, analyzing the footage frame by frame. "This video is authentic," she declared. "The timestamps are accurate, the metadata is intact, and the physical evidence matches Council records from that time period. This is not a fabrication. This is the truth we were not allowed to see." The scientific community began to divide. Some supported the analysis. Others claimed bias. Research papers were published arguing both sides. Academic conferences turned into shouting matches. On Earth, the news arrived like an explosion. For 50 years, humanity had lived under the ban, wondering why they had been rejected so completely. Now they knew. They had been watched. Their good deeds had been recorded. And then those deeds had been deliberately hidden. Director Mina, now elderly but still sharp, called an emergency meeting of Earth's leadership. Jiho was there too, his hair completely white, but his eyes still fierce. The room was full of people who had spent their entire adult lives preparing for the day the ban might be lifted. "The galaxy is tearing itself apart over us," Mina said, "and we have done nothing but exist." General Taiyang, now retired but still influential, spoke up. "We have prepared for this moment. We have ships ready. We have diplomats trained. We have technology to share. The question is, does the Council want us?" A younger woman named Yuna stood up. She had been training her entire life to be Earth's next ambassador. She had studied every Council species, learned dozens of languages, and prepared for every possible scenario. The Council is going to vote again. They have no choice. The public is demanding it. We need to be ready with a response." Jiho looked at her with pride. She represented the next generation, the one that would finally take humanity to the stars. "What do you recommend?" Yuna pulled up a holographic display showing the political divisions across the galaxy. "We face 3 groups now. Those who want us freed, those who want us banned forever, and those who are unsure. We need to focus on that 3rd group. We need to show them that we are not a threat, but we also need to show them that we will not be prisoners any longer." Plans were made. Messages were prepared. Earth's finest speakers, scientists, and diplomats began recording statements that would be sent across the galaxy. They would not beg. They would not apologize for being human. They would simply present themselves as they were and let the galaxy decide. Back at Crossroads Station, the situation was getting more volatile. Kiri received death threats from people who blamed her for destabilizing the council. She also received messages from people calling her a hero. Both were frightening in their own way. Dane spent his time compiling more evidence. He found records of other species that had been rejected by the council under suspicious circumstances. He found financial patterns that suggested this was not the first time counselors had manipulated membership. Decisions for profit. This is bigger than humanity, he told Kiri one night as they reviewed his findings. The council has been corrupt for a long time. We just happened to expose it while investigating the human ban. Security at Crossroads Station had to be increased. Protesters from both sides tried to storm the news network headquarters. Some wanted to stop any further broadcasts. Others wanted to force the release of more hidden files. Station security kept them all at bay, but it was getting harder every day. Then Vexthara made a statement. She appeared on official council channels, her purple scales gleaming under studio lights. She looked calm and composed. "These accusations against me and my colleagues are false," she said smoothly. "The financial records in question show legitimate investments made years apart from the human decision. The sealed files were classified to protect operational security, not to hide evidence. And the footage of human rescues, while touching, does not change the fundamental truth that humans are a dangerous species. They do not save people because they are kind. They save people because they cannot bear to lose. That is not compassion. That is obsession. That is the same drive that makes them so dangerous." Her statement was calculated and clever. She was not denying the facts. She was reinterpreting them. Yes, humans saved people. But that was supposed to be evidence of their dangerous nature, not their heroism. Many people believed her. It was easier than accepting that they had been lied to for 50 years. It was easier than admitting that good people had suffered because of corruption. But many people did not believe her. The Tal Shiva's captain, now very old and near the end of his life, recorded a message from his home world. His voice was weak, but his words were strong. "I was there," he said into the camera. "I was dying, and my crew was dying, and the humans saved us. Not because they were obsessed. Not because they could not bear to lose. They saved us because they saw people in trouble, and they helped. That is all. That is everything. And I have lived with the shame of lying about it for 50 years. I will not die a liar. The truth is the truth. Humanity deserves better than what we gave them." His message went viral across the galaxy. Other survivors began coming forward. The children Dr. Bora had saved, now adults with children of their own. The merchants officer Junho had protected now successful business owners. The scientists Captain Nari had shielded, now leading researchers at major institutions. Hundreds of aliens whose lives had been touched by human compassion spoke up. They told their stories. They showed their scars. They explained what would have happened if the humans had not been there. The tide began to turn. Slowly, painfully, but definitely. Public opinion was shifting. The head counselor, an ancient being who had led the council for decades, finally announced what everyone knew was coming. There would be another vote. The entire council would reconvene to decide humanity's fate one more time. This time, the real footage would be part of the official record. This time, the financial corruption would be investigated. This time, humanity would have a fair hearing. The date was set. In 1 month, the council would meet. The galaxy would be watching. And humanity would finally get its chance to speak. The council chamber looked exactly the same as it had 50 years ago. The same glass walls showing the stars beyond. The same seats arranged in a perfect circle. The same feeling of history and importance weighing down on everyone present. But everything else was different. This time, the chamber was packed with observers from 1,000 worlds. News cameras from every major network pointed at the center of the room. Outside the station, hundreds of ships waited, carrying people who wanted to witness this moment in person. Jiho walked slowly toward the center of the chamber. He was old now, his back bent and his movements careful. But his eyes were still sharp and his voice was still strong. Beside him walked Yuna, young and determined, carrying the hopes of her entire species. The counselors watched them approach. Some faces were familiar. Many were new, their predecessors having resigned in disgrace when the corruption was exposed. Vexthara was not there. She had been removed from her position and was facing criminal charges on her home world. The head counselor, ancient and tired, raised one hand for silence. 50 years ago, this council made a decision regarding humanity. We now know the decision was based on incomplete and manipulated information. We are here today to rectify that wrong. Ambassador Jiho, you may speak. Jiho stepped forward, but before he could say anything, Yuna gently touched his arm. They had discussed this moment many times. Jiho had started this journey, but it was time for the next generation to finish it. He nodded and stepped back. Yuna moved to the center of the room. She looked around at all the different faces, all the different species. Some looked curious. Some looked hostile. Many looked uncertain. She understood all of them. She had studied their cultures, their fears, their hopes. Honorable counselors, she began. Her voice carried clearly through the chamber. I am not here to ask you to forget what you saw 50 years ago. The wars, the weapons, the destruction. All of that was real. All of that was part of our history. I am not here to make excuses for it. Some counselors shifted in their seats. This was not the defensive speech they had expected. But I am here to ask you to see the full picture. Not just the worst of us, but also the best. Not just our capacity for violence, but also our capacity for compassion. You saw humans at war. Did you also see the humans who fought to end those wars? You saw weapons of destruction. Did you also see the hospitals, the schools, the rescue teams? She pulled up a holographic display. It showed the footage that Kiri and Dane had uncovered. Captain Hyan sharing his oxygen. Dr. Bora saving alien children. Officer Junho fighting pirates. Captain Nari using her ship as a shield. These people did not know they were being recorded. They did not know anyone would ever see these acts. They helped because that is what humans do. Not all humans, not every time, but enough of us, often enough, that it defines who we are as a species. A counselor from the Velcrin species, a being of pure energy contained in a crystalline form, spoke up. But young ambassador, this is exactly what concerns us. Your people run toward danger. You risk yourselves for strangers. Is this not evidence of the same aggressive instinct that causes your wars? Yuna had expected this argument. It was the same one Vexthara had made in her statement. She took a breath and answered carefully. You call our refusal to accept loss a flaw. We call it hope. You see aggression. We see determination. When Captain Hyon gave his oxygen to strangers, knowing it might mean his own death, was that conquest? When Dr. Bora worked 30 hours straight to save children she had never met, was that violence? She paused and looked directly at the Velcrin counselor. Or was it something else? Was it the belief that every life has value, even if it is not our own? Was it the stubborn, perhaps foolish idea that we do not have to accept tragedy when we can do something about it? Another counselor, a Drellian who had been on the Tal Shiva all those years ago, stood up. Jiho recognized him immediately. His name was Kelvis, and he had been a young engineer on that cargo ship. Now he was a counselor himself. I was there, Kelvis said quietly. I was dying in the cold of space, and Captain Hyon saved me. He did not do it for glory. He did not do it for reward. He did it because, in his words, it was the right thing to do. I have spent 50 years watching humanity from behind their quarantine. I have seen them build, create, and grow. They have had peace for decades now. Real peace, not enforced peace. They chose it. A murmur went through the chamber. Having a counselor speak in favor of humanity was unexpected, but another counselor, a massive armored being from the Fexic Dominion, stood up with a crash that echoed through the room. Peace for decades? That is nothing. My species has had peace for millennia. What guarantee do we have that human peace is not just a temporary phase? What happens when we let them out and their old instincts return? Before Yuna could respond, another voice spoke. It came from the observation gallery. Security moved to silence whoever had interrupted the proceedings, but the head counselor held up a hand. Let them speak, he said. An elderly human walked slowly down to the chamber floor. He was not part of the official delegation. He wore simple clothes and walked with a cane. But something about him commanded attention. My name is Taiyang, he said. I am a retired general from Earth's military. 50 years ago, when we were banned, I wanted to fight. I wanted to build weapons and prepare for war. I was angry. He looked around at the counselors. But Director Mina, who has since passed, told me something that changed my mind. She said that the council's ban was not a punishment. It was a challenge. They were asking us to prove what we really were, not with weapons or threats, but with time and choices. Taiyang's voice grew stronger. So we chose peace, not because we were afraid of you, not because we were weak. We chose peace because it was the harder path, and we wanted to prove we could walk it. 50 years is nothing to some of you, but it is 2 generations of humans. Children who grew up never knowing war. Grandchildren who see weapons only in museums. That is not a temporary phase. That is who we have become. The Fexic counselor sat down slowly, his argument deflated. Yuna nodded her thanks to Taiyang and turned back to the council. We are not asking you to trust us blindly. We are asking for a chance. Provisional membership. Let us prove ourselves over time. Give us tasks, tests, challenges. Let us earn our place among you. The head counselor looked at her thoughtfully. And if we vote no again? If we decide the risk is still too great? Yuna's face became very serious. Then we will respect your decision. We will return to our system. But we will not stop being who we are. We will not stop improving. We will not stop reaching for the stars. And someday, whether it takes another 50 years or 500, we will be back. Because that is what humans do. We do not give up. The chamber was silent for a long moment. Then the head counselor spoke. The council will now deliberate and vote. All observers must leave the chamber. Yuna, Jiho, Taiyang, and the rest of the human delegation were escorted to a waiting room. Kiri and Dane were there too, having been invited to witness the proceedings. They all sat together, not speaking, just waiting. Hours passed. The sun visible through the station's windows moved across the sky. Still no word. Finally, a messenger appeared. The council has reached a decision. Please return to the chamber. They walked back in silence. The chamber was different now. Some counselors looked relieved. Others looked angry. Many looked simply tired that the head counselor stood. The vote was closer than some wanted, and not close enough for others. But democracy has spoken. By a vote of 64 to 36, the ban on humanity is lifted. Yuna felt her knees go weak. Jiho grabbed her arm to steady her. Around them, some people cheered. Others protested that the head counselor raised his hand for silence again. Humanity is granted provisional council membership. You will have full access to council space, trade routes, and diplomatic channels. However, you will not have voting rights for 10 standard cycles. During that time, you will be evaluated. If you prove yourselves worthy, full membership will follow. It was not everything, but it was enough. It was a beginning. Yuna bowed deeply. Thank you, honorable counselors. We will not disappoint you. As they left the chamber, reporters swarmed them. Questions came from every direction. But Yuna just smiled and said, "Humanity is free. That is all that matters right now." That night, Jiho and Yuna stood at the observation deck of the council station. Looking toward the distant point of light, it was Sol. Already, Earth had received the news. Already, ships were preparing to leave the solar system for the first time in 50 years. "We did it," Jiho said softly. "After all this time, we did it." Yuna nodded. "You did it. You started this journey. I just got to finish it." "No," Jiho said. "We did it together. All of us. Every human who chose peace when war would have been easier. Every person who helped a stranger when they could have looked away. We proved what we are." Far across the galaxy, on Crossroads Station, Kiri and Dane watched the same stars. Thera had offered them both permanent positions at her network. They had become famous as the journalists who exposed the conspiracy and changed galactic history. "Do you think it will work?" Kiri asked. "Do you think humans will live up to the chance they have been given?" Dane's antennae moved in a way that meant uncertainty, but also hope. "I think they will try. And for humans, trying is usually enough." Below them, on a small human cargo ship that had just received permission to leave the Sol system, Captain Minho checked his instruments. His ship was called the New Dawn, and it was the first human vessel to legally cross into council space in 50 years. His communications officer called out, "Captain, we are receiving a distress signal. It is a Quillix transport. Their engines have failed." Minho did not hesitate. "Change course to intercept. Let them know help is on the way." His crew moved to their stations without question. They had trained for this moment, but more than that, it was simply what felt right. A ship in trouble. People who needed help. The fact that they were aliens did not matter. The fact that it might delay their historic journey did not matter. All that mattered was that someone needed help, and they could provide it. The New Dawn changed course and accelerated toward the stranded transport. Behind them, Earth was already fading into the distance. Ahead of them, the galaxy-weighted dot, and somewhere in the Council archives, new files were already being created. Files that would not be hidden or suppressed. Files that would show humanity not as conquerors or monsters, but as neighbors. Flawed, stubborn, sometimes foolish neighbors who ran toward danger instead of away from it. The galaxy had laughed at the ban on humans. They had mocked Earth's application and dismissed humanity's potential. But they had made a mistake. They had given humanity time to prove what they really were. And now, as human ships began to spread across the stars, The galaxy would learn an important lesson. Having humans as friends was far better than having them as prisoners. And the measure of any civilization was not how it treated its own, but how it treated strangers who could offer nothing in return. Humanity had finally come home to the stars, and the stars would never be the same.